Hello everybody and welcome back to the channel. Today we are doing another One Piece review. We are doing the Post-Enies lobby arc. And for a chapter, or for an arc that only had 10 chapters in it, there was a lot that happened in this 10 chapters. We got a lot of reveals and a lot of set up for things to come. Please forgive my terrible lighting. As you can tell by the demon sun that sits above my shoulder, I am where I usually stream, and it's not set up for recording these videos. But just on a positive note, just on a general life update, I will be moving back to Australia in the next couple of weeks, so hopefully I will be able to get more stable internet, which should mean that I should be able to live stream more often, and it should mean that my upload schedule should become a lot more stable, because currently I'm really at the whims of my just terrible internet. But with all that out of the way, let's talk about Post-Enies lobby. So a lot of things happened. I'm going to I think I might try and do things in chronological order, but I will start with Usopp, right? Because all through this saga, I have been saying all along that this would be a great opportunity for the writers to write out Usopp, right? It would make a lot of sense. And even right towards the end of this, when he was running towards the ship, and they were already leaving, and we get the flashback where Zoro is like, hey, look, we're not going to go out and find Usopp, because regardless of how dumb Luffy is, or regardless of, the stupid decisions he makes, he is still our captain, and Usopp can't disrespect our captain, right? If we allow this to go unchecked, it will only cause issues in the future. So Zoro was like, we will not go back. He must apologize to Luffy. He must apologize to us, and then we can take him back. And so when Usopp was running after the ship and he was shouting out all of those things, I really thought in my head, I was like, this could really go either way, right? Usopp could be left behind and then, head back and go and be with Kaya, I believe her name is. Especially because later on in this arc, when we're getting the kind of reactions from everyone about the bounties, we find out that she is still waiting for him, and she does want to become a doctor so she can heal all of his wounds. But in the end, Usopp does apologize, and Luffy grabs him and drags him onto the boat. But we also get an interesting point that, so in the earlier Water 7 arcs, I brought up during the Usopp-Luffy fight, I was like, hey, it's kind of weird how it all happened. They were already leaving and abandoning the ship. They could have just, given it to Usopp, or Luffy could have just, thrown the match so Usopp could have had it and saved face. Or, this, that, and the other. And, at the time, I thought the fact that Luffy, really tried in that fight and beat up Usopp was all to do with, feeding into Usopp's pride, and Luffy not wanting to hurt Usopp's pride by throwing the match. And also, Usopp, obviously, having seen Luffy fight, knows that certain things wouldn't have beaten him, so even if Luffy did try to throw the match, Usopp wouldn't have let him. So it was really interesting to see at the end of this one, when they're having that flashback, and Zoro is just like, we need to respect our captain, and we need to be able to respect our captain. And part of that, I think, involved Luffy also winning that duel. He had to show that he was the strongest in order to, maintain the respect of the crew. Which does make a lot of sense, especially now that, everything has played out. The funny thing about this Post-Enies lobby, and when I was reading it, was, to me, it felt so much like that Log Town arc. And looking at the, the chapters, the names and the arcs and all that, I could see that it was the end of this saga, so it does make sense that it was kind of like a Log Town thing. But one of the things that I really enjoyed about this was how much everything kind of just, came around, how much, stuff that was set up from, ages ago just suddenly came back up. And the clever way in which it happened, for example, the 200 million berries that Frankie stole from Usopp and then just, spent. Right, at no point did we ever really find out what Frankie spent that money on, but it didn't really seem to matter. It was just oh, Frankie spent this money, but, all this other stuff is going on. There's this massive high tide, Iceberg's been shot, Robin's missing. Everyone's been captured. They're all on the train. We gotta jump on this other train and chase after them. We gotta infiltrate this, massive government stronghold and all that. So, in the grand scheme of things, it really didn't matter what Frankie spent that $200 million on, because there was so much other things going on. It was just like, we had the money, we lost the money, it was just like a device to drive the story forward. But then we see in this one that it does finally pay off, because Frankie gets the delivery of the unlimited tree, or the super tree, or whatever, specifically the Atom tree, which I think is a foreshadowing moment for something later on. And it's, as far as I'm aware, the first and only time this has been mentioned. But he mentions that there is a place in the world, or there's like a country or something, that has just had an eternal war. And regardless of like how much they shoot their bullets or fire their bombs or whatever, everyone dies, everyone comes back, everyone dies, whatever, this tree remains and keeps standing. So it makes me think that they are going to go to this island with this eternal war, because that's such an interesting concept for them to just bring up and then never talk about again. Also, there's so much foreshadowing in this, and I can guarantee that there's a lot of foreshadowing that I just don't even understand yet, but would be huge upon a reread. But I'm imagining that they are going to go to this place with the eternal war. They're going to go and find this tree, and Robin is going to find a poneglyph there that has some kind of interesting information. Maybe even the name of the kingdom that was wiped out, that the government seems to be trying so hard to not have people know the name of that kingdom. I don't know. I'm just saying. There are a couple little things that I did take note of, like, for example, right at the beginning of the story, we see Zoro with his, like, melted sword, and we get a flashback to him at the sword vendor, and he's like, just take the sword or whatever. I don't know if that is the cursed sword that has now died, or if it's not. A prediction that I would have, because he still has the hilt of that sword, I've seen, because he's running around and he's still got all 3 hilts sticking out of his sash or cloth or whatever the samurai technical term is for it. My prediction, and we saw him go to a swordsmith and try to buy another sword. My prediction, if I was to hazard a guess, is that he will use his special chi powers, because he's got some kind of spiritual energy, super chi going on. He will use that power to somehow reforge that blade, or that blade will be like a chi sword. It will be like an energy sword or whatever. Because why else would he still be running around with the 3 hilts inside of his sash? And that's not an art mistake that Oda would have made. So either it's just as simple as, Zoro's attached to his swords and doesn't just want to throw it away without a replacement, which is completely understandable and could in fact be the case. Or it could be something more, because it was this demon-cursed sword that has now been, obliterated, and it looks cool too, right? The way that it was, I can't quite remember how his sword was obliterated, but the way that the tiny bit of blade looks is all black and crumbly and really cool looking. So I have a feeling something cool will come from that, which I think is prediction number 1. Now let's keep going. We see Sodom and Gomorrah. They are both alive. That made me feel good. I felt bad in the last arc when they got hit and they were all messed up, and it was oh no, are these seahorses about to die? And I felt really bad for the seahorses. For some reason, Oda has this real, habit of messing up these giant, cute animals. But luckily, they were still alive. So I was pretty excited about that. Then we also find out that, Water 7 is sinking. The, the Aqua Laguna, I believe it's called, was much higher this time. And it did a lot more damage to Water 7. And everyone's starting to panic, because eventually people are going to think that this Aqua Laguna is going to destroy the city. So Iceberg is planning and blueprinting and all that to try and turn Water 7 into a big ship. Which I presume will be a story told through those, the panels, the pictures at the beginning of each chapter head, which will be really interesting to see how that plays out. But now let's talk about Frankie and the way Frankie joins the crew, and how he didn't want to join the crew, and how he was feeling guilty about joining the crew, and all of that good stuff. So when we first find out that Frankie spent the 200 million berries on getting the special Atom mega super wood, and he wants to build the best ship he can out of it, right? That wasn't something that was too particularly difficult to predict, that Frankie would build them a new ship, because we did hear early on in the story that, Frankie's dream was to build the ultimate ship. Right, so that wasn't too much of a surprise. But in that moment when he like explains that to the crew and he's like, "Hey guys, I want to build this ship out of this indestructible thing so you can sail everywhere. Will you please take this ship from me?" I was like, "Oh, okay, so that's how he joins the crew, by building their ship, and then like of course they're going to take him along if he's the only one that built this epic ship." But then later on we find out that after he's built the ship, he has this sense of guilt, I would say. He has this like need to stay on the island to protect Water 7 because it meant so much to his predecessor, Tom. And so even though he likes the Straw Hats so much and he wants to go with them, he has this like sense of duty or this sense of guilt or something that is tying him to the Water 7. He has this feeling that he needs to protect it because, you know, it was kind of his fault that Tom was taken away and died. And then we get all the ridiculousness with like how they get Frankie to the ship and like on the ship by like all of his bros are just like, "We know this is what's best for you," you know, especially once they see the bounty and they're just like, you know, now that you've got a bounty, the world government is going to come for you and you are going to feel bad about abandoning us or putting us in danger by you being here. So they're like, "You must go to the Straw Hat Pirates." And they say to Luffy like, "Hey, you know, Frankie isn't going to want to come with you, but we need you to take him with you, regardless of if you have to use force or like coercion or whatever you have to do, take him with you." And so in the end, they like steal his Speedo, they steal his pants, so he has to run after them to go to the Straw Hat ship. All that was great, all that was funny. It was a nice little like end, like after so much dramatics, and especially like in the last arc, you know, everything that goes on with Robin, right? Like that's so deep and emotional and all that happened. So it was really nice just to have like a dumb scene where they just like steal Frankie's pants and just run off with them. You know, it was really nice just to have that like dumb comedic, and you just see like there's so many scenes of like Frankie's just like hairy butt. And I think that it was like, this is going to sound so dumb, but I think it's like great storytelling, right? Because in the last arc, like I said, you know, it was all just like up and down and up and down, and the emotional beats were just like so intense and in your face, and like everything that happened with Robin when she's like, "I just want to die," and then she's like, "I don't want to die," and then like how hard she fights just to stay alive, just to give her friends time to save her, and then, you know, towards the end everything is lost. So it's like, and then at the end we have to say goodbye to the Merry and it burns down, right? So just to be on that emotional roller coaster and then just to hit this end and it's just like, okay, good, you know, the tension lets off, the stress lets off. It's just like these dumb, funny moments, but also these like massive world building moments and these, you know, big foreshadowing moments and like payoffs that have happened earlier. But I do want to mention a prediction that I did get wrong, right? And this one honestly really, really surprised me. I predicted that Tom wouldn't be dead, right? That was something that's really weird, and like, so I've read all the way to the end of this Enis lobby, and I'm just like, wait, what? They didn't rescue Tom? I honestly thought in my heart of hearts that they were all going to go to, you know, the place, they were going to go to the jail cell, and, you know, in a turn of like, you know, Spadman or whatever being a dick, he was going to throw Frankie into the same cell as Tom, or like in an adjacent cell to Tom or something, and they would talk. And when Luffy and all them came to rescue him, Tom would be saved as well, and he would get to reunite with the Mermaid Woman. So it was really interesting to me, and I did find it quite bizarre that Tom wasn't actually still alive. You know, whatever, it fits the story, like whether he is alive or whether he isn't, you know, it fits the story both way, and it's got all of the emotional beats and all of the emotional damage that it needs to cause. But I'm just saying that I did think he was alive. And just on the grammar, in my last video, someone commented that her being a mermaid was foreshadowed by her drinking like a fish. I did like that comment. I did have a good chuckle. So there were also a lot of big reveals around Luffy and his lineage and all of that, and like the similarities between Gold Roger and Luffy just keep coming. So, you know, it obviously began with like Luffy and the name thing, And people are like, oh wow, he's got D in his name just like Gold Roger, and then like, they act the same, so people say, and all of that. But now the similarities keep coming in regards to like, so Luffy's ship is being built out of the same wood that Gold Roger's ship was built out of by the apprentice of the guy that built Gold Roger's ship, and is also now being pursued by Garp, who is the same guy that took down Gold Roger. Right, now, like, this similarity game that they've been playing for, like, 400 chapters or something has been, like, going strong this whole time, and I can't wait to finally find out, like, what is going on. Like, why did they spend so much time developing these similarities? This also leads us onto the similarities between Luffy and Garp, right? So we now find out that Luffy has a grandfather, and we also find out who Luffy's father is, who I honestly thought was Gold Roger, so that was a bit of a shock to me. And we also find out that Luffy was originally trained as a Marine. He was originally being, groomed to be an incredibly strong Marine by his grandfather, Garp, who was, like, well, abusing him. He was, like, putting him out in the forest and, like, I don't know, whatever it was, throwing him into the air so he could hit the ground and drowning him and whatever. And he was, like, doing all of these things to increase his life force, so to say, which is what Sanji says. Sanji's like, well, now I understand why he's just, like, this unstoppable life force. So, that was a really interesting reveal to find out that, Garp was Luffy's grandfather. He was grooming Luffy to be a Marine, and at some point something happened. I believe he had like a bad influence or something, but it wasn't Shanks, right? Because Garp said that he entrusted Luffy to an old friend, so the old friend was the bad influence, or like let him down, or Luffy ran away from the old friend. I guess that's why Luffy ended up in the barrel or whatever. But yeah, we also find out about Luffy's father, who was the guy from the end of Logtown that saves him. We find out his name is Dragon, right? I always called him the Storm Guy. But we find out that he is like this massive revolutionary. His title is the most dangerous man in the world because he leads revolutions all around the world to destroy the world government, which, we don't really know what's going on with that yet. But we do know that the world government is up to something dodgy. We do know that they are kind of like dodgy people. That's kind of like what's going on with the poneglyphs and how the world government began right at the end of the missing century. So even though, Mr. Dragon is like technically the world's most dangerous man or whatever, and, causing all these issues for the world government, he is technically like a Robin Hood character. So I guess I should be believing right now. And I have a feeling that will be doing some kind of foreshadowing for later on, like towards the end of One Piece. I have a feeling that the world government will be overrun and destroyed because we will find out that they are secretly evil or something. We also get to see Koby again, and we get to see Helmeppo again, which is really funny because, like, when I first saw Helmeppo's name and he was like, I'm this guy, I was like, wait, isn't that the big guy with the metal jaw that, like, eats everything? But that's Wapol. Helmeppo was the other guy that tied up Zoro at the beginning, right? And it was really good to see them again because we did get to see their, like, their diary of basic training or whatever. That was one of the stories that were told at the beginning of each chapter. So it was really great to see them, go through that kind of thing and become Marines. And now we get to see them really as Marines. And we got a really great moment with, like, Koby and Luffy where Koby is like, we're letting you go this time or whatever, but next time we meet, I'm going to be so much stronger and we're going to fight and I'm going to capture you. I'm going to become, the world's greatest Marine or whatever. And then we're going to fight and I'm going to capture you. And Luffy's like, yeah, let's do it. Like, that sounds like a lot of fun. I can't wait. I hope you get stronger. I sincerely hope you get stronger because we're only getting stronger and I want it to be a good fight. So, like, you better be getting stronger so we can have a good fight later on. And he's just full of, like, love and encouragement for Koby to be stronger, to put up a good fight so they can have that fun. Which now brings us on to talking about Shanks. So Shanks, he goes and he sees Whitebeard, and he has like a parley with Whitebeard because he wants to ask him to stop Ace from tracking down Blackbeard. But before that happens, we find out that Ace is part of something called the Yonko, which is the 4 great pirates of the end of the Grand Line. So he's like one of the top 4 strongest people, which is really interesting because I believe that Luffy and Shanks, I keep getting Shanks and Ace's name mixed up. I think towards the end, Luffy and Shanks will team up to take down whoever is number 1, and then kind of Luffy and Shanks, it will be like, oh, these two now have to fight to kind of like see who will be the Pirate King, but Shanks will just like respectfully like just be like, look, I don't even want it anymore, I'm old, I'm missing an arm, you can have it. That's one of my theories. Now, when Shanks is walking onto Whitebeard's ship, he's making everybody like faint around him. And the word that they use is haki, or H-A-K-I, however you pronounce that word. And, they're like, why is your haki so strong and it's making all of these people faint? And I was like, I just kind of presumed that that was the same kind of thing that Zoro has, that same kind of like chi energy or whatever that someone can train. It's like the other magical force that isn't the devil fruit. We also find out that Buggy and Shanks were both recruits on Gold Roger's ship, which is something that I wasn't aware of. And it would be really interesting to go back and see all of the flashbacks of, anytime they explain what's going on that ship when they were like together, and just know that it's Gold Roger's ship. So that was also really interesting. One of the great moments that I wanted to mention was when, the log pose is completely mapped out the island and they're ready to go on to the next one, and they're like, oh, okay, the next place we're going is Fishman Island, the paradise underneath the sea. And Nami's just sitting there and she's just like, I've got mixed feelings about going there. And Luffy's like, yeah, understandable considering everything that happened on your island. And it's just like, I'm just like, what's it going to be like when we go to like Fishman Island? Is it going to be like terrifying for Nami? Is it going to be the worst thing in the world for her? Is everyone going to be really polite and friendly? And like, how is it the paradise under the sea? How are they getting under the sea? Do they have to make like some kind of modifications to their ship? Or is it going to be something like real bizarre? Like there's a whirlpool and like you go down the whirlpool and there's like an air tunnel that'll suck you down into some Atlantis thing. Is it going to be an Atlantis thing? And then, but like there's like an air bubble or something, and then to get back out you get sucked out the other part of the wind tunnel. I don't know, I'm not quite sure, but I'm definitely ready to see what happens next. Then we get the bounty update. Everyone's bounty gets increased, and everyone that didn't have a bounty now gets a bounty. And I really like the fact there are 2 really interesting things that happen here. Number 1, Chopper's bounty is only 50 berries. I really liked that. I thought that was great. And like they're just like, Chopper is the pet, but he's wanted dead or alive for only like $50. So I liked that. But also, one of the interesting things is that Usopp is not on the bounty. It is, the Sniper King that is on the bounty. So I have a feeling that will go to their advantage at some point. I have a feeling that Usopp will leverage the fact that he, doesn't have a bounty. It's the Sniper King that has a bounty. He will leverage that somehow later on in the story to their advantage. I cannot imagine how, but I can't imagine that they would make the Sniper King have the bounty and them not take advantage of it. It feels like some kind of foreshadowing or setup for a story point. And also on that, we get Sanji's picture is drawn, right? And Sanji's obviously really sad about it because it's an ugly picture and it's just like a funny joke or whatever. But we get this point a little later on when they're at the Marine headquarters and they're like, yep, we've got the bounties, everything's all done up. But something weird happened when we tried to take a photo of Sanji. Or, the guy's like, why is this guy's thing hand-drawn? Why isn't there any photo? And the guy's like, something weird happened. And he shows the Polaroid picture and it's all black. And I'm just like, is that just... And the guy goes like, did you take the lens cap off? And he's just like, you're an idiot. Did you take the lens cap off? And it's played off as a joke. But I'm just like, is that just a silly joke? Is that just like a dumb kind of like, oh yeah, I forgot to take the lens cap off the camera and now my picture turned out black? Or is it something more devious and deep? Like, is Sanji some kind of like a devil demon thing? You know, he can kick fire now, so is he some kind of like demon that can't have his photo taken? Is this some kind of foreshadowing for something later on? We also get the moment with Aokiji and Robin when they're all at the feast or whatever, and Aokiji's there, and he's just like, I thought I was going to have to kill you because you never found somewhere to settle down. All you wanted to do was die, but now it looks like you've found somewhere to settle down. It looks like now you've found somewhere to harbor. And, it was like he was fulfilling his promise to his friend, the giant that died on the archaeologist island when he killed him. And, the giant was like, help her, whatever. And he felt guilty about killing his giant friend, so he didn't specifically help Robin because that would go against his marine thing, his duties, but he didn't hinder her in any way either. So I'm really interested to see what happens next with Aokiji and Robin because she's now found somewhere to settle down, but she has found somewhere to settle down that is in direct violation or in direct disagreement with the world government, because Luffy has declared war with the world government, as was covered in the newspaper. So it makes sense that Aokiji should have to fight Robin and the Straw Hats. So it's going to be really interesting to see how all of that plays out in the future. Also, I have mentioned the time skip in the past, and people have told me not to mention it and not to think about it. I did think that this moment was going to be the time skip, so I'm still just waiting for it. I have no idea when it's coming, or why, or how, or what is the purpose of it. But I thought this was the moment that the time skip was coming, because they were forced to be on this island until the boat was built and ready to go, right? And they could have made that take any amount of time. They could have made it take one day with all the, shipwrights and all that in the area, and they're so good and fantastic at their job. They could have made it make one day, or they could have made it take 10 years. They could have made it take any amount of time that they specifically wanted it to take. So I thought that this was going to be the time skip part. But it wasn't. So I'm still waiting to find out what it is and why it happens. Instead, the ship was built in 5 days by a loving team. This also leads us on to the ship, the new ship, the Sunny, with the big lion on it and the big it looks like a sunflower, but it's his mane. I like the ship. I think it looks great. We haven't really got much of a tour of it yet, but I have a feeling the first couple of chapters of the next arc will be kind of giving us a tour. I thought it was really interesting that the deck was covered in grass. I thought that was cool. And something that was just kind of mentioned in passing is that the ship, I believe, is called a sloop, and it is specifically designed so that a good navigator can take it anywhere at any time in any condition, as long as that navigator knows what they're doing and is good at their job. I thought that was really great to really bolster Nami's importance to the story, that she can, she is great at what she does. She can take that ship anywhere, anytime, in any conditions. So I thought that the fact that they changed the type of ship to bolster Nami's importance in the story was actually a really great idea. This leads us on to more of the end, where we start to find out everyone's reactions to the bounties. I thought that was really great to just kind of go through, and we got to see everyone. We got to see Zoro's island, where, all the kids are going up to Zoro's sensei and they're like, oh, teach us how to be pirates, teach us how to be pirates. And the sensei's like, I don't teach people how to be pirates, I teach people how to believe in their swordsmanship. Then we get Nami's island and Luffy's island, where the mayor is really grumpy that Luffy's come off and become a pirate. We get Sanji's. Sanji's I thought was one of the better ones, where we see Zeph and all the chefs are there and they're handing out copies of the bounties to anyone that comes there and eats, and they're really proud of him. Usopp's was pretty good as well, where we get to see, I believe her name is Kaya, and the two kids, and they're all talking and they're like, this has to be Usopp, it has to be his nose, it has to be him. And we find out that she's still waiting for him, and she wants to be a doctor because she wants to heal him, she wants to impress him. It was really good just to like know that she's still there waiting for him. And we get, the doctress and the princess, and we see the Falcon guy. I thought the Falcon guy was dead, so that was really weird for me to see the Falcon guy again. But we see, all their reactions, and they're all happy, and they're like, wow, yeah, they're out, they're doing their best thing, living their best lives. You go, guys. We also get to see Smoker again. He's been promoted from captain to commodore, and he's like kind of traveling around, and I believe he's trying to build up his esteem. He's trying to build up his like ranks and promotions and power levels to specifically go and fight Luffy. It was really good to see Smoker again. I'm, really excited to see what he does later on, because he's a pretty cool dude. He's a pretty cool, like, antagonist, kind of anti-hero, hero, whatever. He's like working for a corrupt government, but he's kind of like, this like Lone Ranger kind of guy that's kind of just doing his own thing. So he's a really interesting character that I think can really develop some really interesting points. So I'm excited to see what they do with him later. And one more thing before I forget is we find out that the marine ships can sail through the calm belt on either side of the Grand Line because they have specific stones on the bottom of their ship that I believe mimic the energy of the ocean, so the Sea Kings don't see the ship. All they see is more ocean. That at least was my understanding of it. I have a feeling that that will come up again. I can't imagine that they would create that piece of world building, that very specific piece of world building, and it to like never come up again. That would be bizarre. And while we're talking about bizarre, the last thing that I'm going to talk about in this review is Blackbeard and his devil fruit being darkness. But more than that, his ability to take away a devil fruit's user if he's like touching them, or take away their ability to use their devil fruit. That's really interesting. I did say, in one of my earlier reviews that I couldn't imagine anyone being more powerful than Aokiji with his, like, Ice Age abilities, but then we see this guy with the ability to, like, summon black holes and take away someone's ability to use a devil fruit. And right at the end, I'm going to read you the direct quote. Right at the end of that fight, it says, Grand Line duel at Banaro Island. The battle between those two pirates was later described as the trigger of a very big incident in the coming future. So obviously there's some kind of like massive thing, the final thing we see is like the blackness and the fire slamming together and it like shooting off into the sky. So I don't know if it's like going to create some kind of massive black hole or create some kind of massive whirlpool that just like disrupts the entire Grand Line, or whatever it is that's going to happen. But it's really interesting to know that something like dramatic and drastic is coming in the future. And that's really going to be it for me. I did really enjoy the Water 7 saga. It was probably one of my favorite ones so far. What have we had? We've had Sky Island, Alabasta, East Blue. I can't really say which one is my favorite one because they're all like over 100 chapters long, right? So it's kind of hard distinction to make. But I did really enjoy it. I really enjoyed getting Frankie. I really enjoyed like all of the big reveals that happened, like Kokoro being a mermaid and just like random things like that in the flashbacks, and the turn of events who CP9 was. I was not expecting that at all. And basically everything that happens, Robin's story, how like emotional, crazy that was. Like I thought Nami's emotional story would be like, it would be really hard to try and beat that one. But we got Robin's emotional story in the now as opposed to in the past. And it was just really great. Really, really good. Really enjoyed it. I'm really excited to see what happens next. Let me see. What's the next one? Thriller Bark. Thriller Bark is 47 chapters long. So join me next week. I will be doing Thriller Bark. Please like the video, subscribe to the channel, leave me a comment. I live stream anytime that I can. I'll usually try and foreshadow my live streams. Join the Patreon if you like. It'll be down in my description. And as always, thank you very much.